Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. My name is Leighanne and I talk about books. If I look really familiar, it's because I'm doing some back-to-back filming on an off day, so sorry. I could change my shirt and pretend it's a different day, but I'm lazy. So today we're doing another book tag. This is the On My Shelf tag, and I originally saw this on Bree Hill's channel. I will make sure to link that down below, as well as the creator. Pretty much what this is you reach out to people and you have them give you a combination. So I posted on Twitter and I asked people to send me combinations of shelves 1 through 8 and book number 1 through 25. So they could post shelf 1, book 1, and I would pick up the first book on my shelf. I would have loved to have been able to do this actually in front of my shelves, but where my shelves are downstairs, it's a little wonky and the lighting down there is really terrible. So I am filming in my normal spot and I just have my stack of books next to me. I went ahead and pre-pulled them and everything. So without further ado, let's get started. So the first book that I'm pulling was sent from Jessica from Game of Tomes on Twitter. She chose Shelf 1, Book 1. So the very first book that is on my shelf is The Magician's Nephew by C.S. Lewis. This is book number 1 in the Chronicles of Narnia. That shelf happens to be the shelf that houses most of my children's fiction or middle grade or things like that. This is a book that I have read. This is one of my favorite series of all time. This particular edition comes as part of a box set that my sweet husband got for me as a Christmas gift one year because he knew how much I wanted a really nice set of these books. So love him and love these books. The next book that I pulled was from Bree Hill, and she chose Shelf 5, Book 13. That book is The Ultimate Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. This is actually a bind-up of 5 different novels by Douglas Adams. I have not read anything in this book yet. This was actually a gift from one of my coworkers, one of my fellow managers several years ago. It's been sitting on my shelf for a really long time, and science fiction is not a genre that I find myself reaching for an awful lot. I did just read Long Way to a Small Angry Planet not that long ago and absolutely adored it, so I definitely feel like this is going to be a book that I'm going to pick up in the future. So in the immediate future, I should say. So the next book that I pulled was also from Bree, and she chose Shelf 3, Book 11, and that book is Everything's Eventual by Stephen King. This is a short story collection of 14 short stories. This particular short story collection houses some of my favorite short stories from him. I think that I've read this at least 3 times, and I actually did a presentation about one of the short stories in this when I was in 9th or 10th grade, something along those lines. This book was published in 2002. Shelf 3 happens to be my Stephen King shelf, and there were quite a few people who picked books off of Shelf 3, so this is not going to be the only King that you will see today. So the next book was from Christina from Game of Tomes. She chose Shelf 6, Book 13, and that happens to be The Hero of Ages, which is Mistborn number 3 by Brandon Sanderson. I have read the first in this series. I have not yet picked up Book 2 or Book 3. That particular shelf happens to house a lot of my YA and a little bit of fantasy. I kind of do my shelves according to genre, and some of them kind of run together and they don't really make any sense. But yeah, this is the UK edition that I got from Book Depository because they are so beautiful. I definitely enjoyed the first in the series, and I definitely plan on picking up the second at some point soon. I'm hoping that this is because it's only a trilogy. I'm hoping that this is going to be a series that I actually finish. It's a series that I really do want to finish, so. The next book that I pulled was sent to me by Charles Explosion. He chose Shelf 7, Book 20, and that book is Abarat, Days of Magic, Nights of War, which is book number 2 in the Abarat series. This is a young adult fantasy series by Clive Barker. I know that there are some people who are not a huge fan of Clive Barker, but this series is excellent. It is not even a fraction as fucked up as some of his other works can be. And this is one of my favorite fantasy series of all times. So I actually plan on rereading the first book in this series later on this year as part of retro rereads because I just love it so much. Right now it is a trilogy. From my understanding, there's supposed to be 2 more books that are gonna come out in this series, but we haven't heard anything on when those could possibly be coming out. So the next book was also sent to me by Christina from Game of Tomes. She chose Shelf 3, Book 1, which, as I have previously stated, is my Stephen King shelf, and the first book on that shelf is Joyland, which is a hard case crime novel. So this is a little bit different from my understanding as to some of his other work. This happens to be the illustrated edition, which I am really excited to read. As you can see, it is pretty short, so I figure it's something that is going to be fairly easy to get through. It's got the deckled edges and everything. So the next pick was sent to me by Bree, and she chose Shelf 8, Book 10, and that is God Bless You Mr Rosewater by Kurt Vonnegut. This is actually one of the books that I have not read by Vonnegut. I have read several of his works. Most of them were old copies that my mom had. I do really enjoy his writing. I actually could not tell you what this book is about. I just know that I got it on like super sale. It's a used copy that I think I found at like Second and Charles or something like that. As you guys can see, I do not have a problem having a bunch of books on my shelves that I have not read yet. I am slowly making my way through my library and all the time adding to it. So, but anyway, Vonnegut, love his satire and just his writing in general. So this is one that I'm sure I'll reach for at some point. The next pick was also sent from Christina at Game of Tomes. She chose Shelf 6, Book 17. Shelf 6, as I previously mentioned, is some of my YA. So this is The Knife of Never Letting Go by Patrick Ness. This is book number 1 in the Chaos Walking trilogy, and I have actually read this book before, and I really enjoyed it. Some of you guys might recognize this from a haul video that I have done. This is a dystopian that takes place in a world where there are no women, and it makes this thing called noise, and pretty much you can hear everybody's thoughts at all times, and you can like even hear the thoughts of some of the animals. And then things happen, because I am really bad at synopsises, if you guys haven't noticed that, but things happen. But that's just like the general idea of this. I have not finished this series. I do have the other two. I really do look forward to reading them because I really did enjoy this first one. The next pick was from Simone Books, and she chose Shelf 3, Book 14. Once again, Shelf 3 is my Stephen King shelf, and that is The Talisman, which is written by Stephen King in conjunction with Peter Straub. I don't know how to say his name. This is a book that I have read. I absolutely adored this book. This is part 1 of a duology. It is The Talisman and then Black House. I have read both of those. This is a duology that actually connects very closely with the world of the Dark Tower. So if you have read the Dark Tower series and you liked them, this is definitely going to be a duology that you would want to read. There's a lot of similarities, a lot of crossover in terms of character and locations and things like that. But the writing in this is really good. I got this copy from a used bookstore, as you can see from the sticker that I have not yet peeled off, because I tried to peel it off and it didn't want to come off right. So I'm trying to figure out the best way to do that. But yes, so definitely really enjoyed this one. The next book pick was from Jess from Game of Tomes. She chose Shelf 5, Book 19. Shelf 5 is the shelf that houses some of my historical fiction. And book number 19 is World Without End by Ken Follett. I have not read this one yet. This is the second part in the Kingsbridge series, which the part number 1 is Pillars of the Earth. I have read Pillars of the Earth and absolutely adored that book. It is super long, as this one is too. You can see it is huge, but it is historical fiction. Like I said, it is part 2 to Pillars of the Earth, but I believe it takes place like 200 years after the setting of Pillars of the Earth. I don't know if there's a connection to any of the previous characters. That's something that I am unsure of. This is definitely something that I want to read at some point. I have absolutely no idea when I will reach for it though. And we have reached the last pick, and the last pick was also from Jess from Game of Tomes. And that last pick is actually the last book on my last shelf, and that book is White Oleander by Janet Fitch. This is a book that I have read. I read this years ago and I loved this book. This book is excellent. I am not really going to give a plot synopsis because I'm pretty sure that this is a book that a lot of people are familiar with. I absolutely love this book and I highly recommend reading it. It's actually a book that I would love to reread at some point. I did read this in my late teens, early 20s, I believe. I want to make sure that I can get everything that I can out of it. So those are just some of the picks that are on my shelf. I kind of did this in lieu of a bookshelf tour because I don't really have the capability to do one of those because I have a lot of bookshelves and I film with my phone, which does not have all that much memory, and I know that that's probably going to be a really, really long video. So I have tons and tons and tons more books, and I might do a full bookshelf tour at some point, you know, once I upgrade my equipment and things like that. But thank you to everyone who sent suggestions on Twitter. You guys are awesome. If you haven't done anything like this, I think that you should. It is really fun, and it's really cool for those of us who don't have the capability to do bookshelf tours and stuff like that. So I highly encourage you to do it. It's really cool. But I may do another one like this in the future just because I have so many more books and I'm constantly adding to them. That is all I have for you guys today. As always, if you like what you see and you want to see more, make sure you click subscribe and give a big thumbs up. You can find all of my social media links in the down bar below, as well as all of the channels that I mentioned today. You can find all of their information also in the down bar, and you should definitely check them out. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you all next time. Bye.